The South Korean National Security Advisor Jang Ho-jin ramped up its stance, issuing another stark warning Sunday against Russia. He clarified Seoul would have no red lines left if Moscow supplies high-precision weapons to Pyongyang. What do we make of the recent Putin-Kim summit and the tricky tightrope some must walk in relations to Russia? For further analysis, we're now joined by Professor Kim Byung-joo of the Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Good morning, Professor Kim.
Good morning. Great to see you back. Missed you last time.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be back in my seat. It's like riding a bike, actually.
Okay.
Let's get started on this topic. So it turns out a week in a news cycle, a lot can happen. The rare Putin and Kim summit did, in fact, take place, but perhaps we need to backtrack a little bit further. What was it that we had anticipated before the summit, Professor Kim?
Several points. First of all, question of whether the discarded North Korea-Russia cooperation mechanism or treaty would be revived. What happened was between North Korea and the Soviet Union, there was like a military treaty, friendship treaty, and a mutual assistance treaty that was set up back in 1961. That had kind of like automatic involvement clause, sentences that makes kind of responsibility on both sides to help each other when there's a time of military conflict. There was such clause in this 1961 treaty, but after the fall of Soviet Union, the treaty was discarded in 1996. And since then, year 2000, around the time of Putin's visit to Pyongyang, the treaty, it was not called a treaty, it was like a mutual declaration or so. Oh, there's a friendship treaty also, it was called. But anyway, this like a strong military cooperation clause was not revived at that time, 24 years ago. But this time, the fear was whether this will be revived, the Cold War setting would be revived or not. There was a big watching point. Together with that, big concern on the side of the United States and everybody here is kind of Russia's capability to help North Korea upgrade its capacity to deliver its nuclear warheads to the mainland of the United States. What that requires is that North Korea is believed to have not yet finished its development of re-entry technology of the warheads when they shoot the missiles, ballistic missiles when it goes out of hemisphere. And as it re-enters the hemisphere, to land on the target, the re-entry technology side has not been perfect, has been made perfect yet. And the idea has been that Russia could actually help North Korea to finish this kind of the technology development. In that case, it will make North Korea's nuclear threat totally credible, nuclear threat against the United States totally credible. And in that case, if it becomes that way, then fear is that U.S. could be frozen when there's a North Korea threatening South Korea, and United States may not be able to act because of the fear of North Korea nuclear warheads landing in their mainland. So the reentry technology side, help from Russia, had been feared. And also the nuclear submarine, North Korea, if they can develop technology to have their nuclear submarines, then nuclear submarines will hide under the sea surface and could get close to U.S. coastal areas. And when there's a conflict between the United States and North Korea, they can shoot nuclear warheads and then land them on major cities and stuff. So the re-entry technology of the warheads and the nuclear submarines, and together with that also satellite technology. North Korea does not really have sufficient reconnaissance satellite capability, and they're always far behind the United States and Korea. And Russia could also help that side as well. So satellite, nuclear submarine, re-entry technology, as well as the mutual defense treaty. Those were the points that were feared in a way as the summit was coming, and many analysts were really busy analyzing what would they mean if they become actualized.
And some of it was actualized. It does
Mhm.
look like the Russian leader is willing to challenge the West like he has never before in terms of Ukraine. What did
Mm.
we observe in terms of what the summit actually produced, Professor Kim?
Yeah, we have several indications about different things that might have been actualized. But the thing is, the things are at this point unclear. We only judge based on what we got before, during, and then after the summit. One is Putin was talking about the need for a new settlement system between North Korea and Russia to bypass all these sanctions that's imposed on North Korea, which kind of nullifies all these restrictions on imposed on North Korea from Russian side. So meaning that even though North Korea has acquired nuclear weapons, North Korea will be free from the perspective of Russia, kind of to conduct all these different things. And then between Russia and North Korea, there will be freedom of exchange, trade, and all in economic interactions. So Putin emphasized the need for the new system. So what comes to be that system is something we still have to watch.
Mm-mm.
And then Russian side was talking about, Putin actually was talking about the need for comprehensive strategic partnership agreement. They produced a new kind of agreement, and I don't know what the real actual official name for that is, but Putin was talking about the need for this comprehensive strategic partnership agreement before the summit. How close they are from his idea of it and actual they sign the documents, I think it still needs to be examined. And as you reported in the news segment right
Mm.
before this segment, we understand that North Korea has been delivering substantial amount of ammunitions to Russia,
Right.
to be used in Ukraine, and looks like that is going to for sure continue. If anything, we know what Russia needs. And then the immediate reason why Putin was in Pyongyang was to secure these ammunitions,
Mm.
supply of ammunitions from North Korea, with promise of delivering things that will be in Kim Jong-un's doorway later on. So I don't think Putin had anything immediate to deliver to North Korea, but Putin really needed North Korea's immediate commitment of continuing of the ammunition supply to Ukraine. So probably that much is what we think has been actualized as a result of the summit this time.
Mm. Just in case our listeners missed the headlines, according to the Washington Post, North Korea sent over 74,000 tons of explosives to Russia. That's
Hmm.
from August last year to
Hmm.
January this year.
Right.
Which brings us to our third question today. What would Russia's help to North Korea in terms of warhead delivery, satellite, and nuclear submarine technologies actually mean for us?
Yeah, for us, that's a critical question.
Right.
If we have to differentiate the impact on South Korea versus United States, these warheads, reentry capability, and then satellite and then nuclear submarines, they're largely about the threats on the United States. So they're not immediate threats for South Korea. Nothing substantially changes, even if all these threats are materialized for South Korea's immediate threat. But the thing is, however, that can be said, but we have to make it very clear. If United States is locked out because of this threat of nuclear weapons, then no, United States' promise to defend South Korea becomes nullified. So you can say these are mostly for against the United States, but you have to also recognize that these reentry technology of the warheads and the nuclear submarines and satellite, they could make U.S. commitment to defending Korea kind of meaningless. So in that sense, it's very, very important. And so that's why we have been watching closely, and then we still have to continue to watch as we go forward to see to what extent these kind of possibilities are getting materialized. In addition, though, the immediate impact items we have learned. Experts are talking about possibility of Russia actually helping North Korea after the summit now in the fields of short-range ballistic missiles. Short-range ballistic missiles are the ones that will fall
Mm.
over our heads in Seoul and South Korea if something happens. So Russia can help North Korea to further advance their technology and then allow their weapons to become more precision weapons and greater capability to target their targets in South Korea. Indeed, it's a real impact for us and so on. And today's news headline this morning, we raised lots of stuff about Russia's possible help to North Korea in kind of increasing such kind of capabilities. So it's kind of concerning both ways. Those threats that has immediate bearing on the United States, but also the greatly compromise U.S. capability to defend South Korea, plus North Korea's capability to directly attack South Korea. So in two ways, there are those significant points we have to watch closely.
In fact, Vladimir Putin did threaten to arm North Korea if the West continues to supply weapons to Russia. What would Russia's commitment to helping North Korea in case of military conflict actually mean?
Korea's commentators and Korea's media outlets have talked at length and extensively about this revival of Russia's commitment to help North Korea in the time of military conflict. The thing is, I tend to take a minority stance here. I tend to take a minority stance in many issues, but especially on this one. Those people who are saying, "Oh my God, what do we do if Russia helps North Korea?" and they sign this document, it could mean that they're automatically going to be involved in Korean Peninsula conflict. I have great doubt about that because I'm just mindful of the history of authoritarian regimes and the treaties, international agreements, documents signed. They mean a lot for countries that are democracies.
Right.
Those systems are based on norms, rules, promises, commitments, institutional binding, all these things. But authoritarian countries, with some certain exaggeration, I would dare to say things written in documents and signed documents mean almost nothing for authoritarian leaders. I'm just thinking about, for example, what Stalin did with Hitler during the time of World War II. Stalin signed a non-aggression pact with Germany at the earlier part of the war, and he quickly turned around and invaded Germany when the war turned out to be looking like Germany is going to be on the defensive. Soviet Union under Stalin quickly took the side with the United States and the Western world, and they threw away the non-aggression pact right away. There are plenty of cases where authoritarian regimes would sign a document, international document with other countries, and they would treat it kind of meaninglessly. So I think excessive worry about Russia's automatic involvement in Korean Peninsula conflict is, I think, going too far in a way.
Okay.
And so I wouldn't say we should worry about it too much about it. Just rather than that, we should be just mindful that Russia is really totally focused on three things. One is, number one, fighting war in Ukraine right at this point, doing everything to help their capability to fight war in Ukraine. That's number one priority. Number two priority is sustaining their economy under all these sanction systems imposed because of Ukraine. So finding ways to sustain their oil-based economies. That's number two. Number three is finding every possible way to inflict pain on the United States, causing trouble for the United States. There are even reports about Russia possibly supplying arms to Houthi rebels so that they can cause greater trouble in the Middle East along the sea supply lines and so on. So Russia is committed to causing trouble for the United States in any way possible all around. So those are Russia's priorities and preoccupations. So we should be mindful about that. And so in judging what's actually coming up as a result of Putin and Kim Jong-un meeting this time, we should be mindful of Russia's priority and then kind of judge and evaluate the results with kind of like a balanced perspective here. That would be my take.
But that the very third point puts South Korea in a tough position, considering that the Yoon administration has aligned itself with mutual interest with neighboring countries with the United States. If Russia's objective is to cause pain for the U.S., where does that put South Korea?
Right.
That brings us to our last question today. What should South Korea do then in response to the latest Russia-North Korea summit?
Right. Yes, indeed. The way you put the question itself is very, very powerful and makes it very significant here. And we have to think about that, making pain for the United States and what would it mean and how we should deal with the future steps. The thing is, as we sit back and take certain steps back from all this kind of like strong reactions to summit in Pyongyang, and oh my God, what do we do? Russia, North Korea working together. And as I mentioned, my argument is we have to be more cool-headed about this. Overall, with this cool-headedness, what we can think about is actually, if we think about carefully, there are a lot of reasons, and a very strong reason for us not wanting to see Russia win the war in Ukraine. You see, because if Russia wins a war in Ukraine, what would that mean for China in their dealing with Taiwan? And if China does something to Taiwan, what does it mean for security on Korean Peninsula? And so let's say Russia's victory in Ukraine, how would that send encouragement to Beijing and Pyongyang in terms of changing the status quo? I think that's a very important question. So fundamentally speaking, there is a fundamental interest in South Korea not wanting to see Russia to win the war in Ukraine. In terms of what we can do to serve that interest of ours, I think there are a range of different steps, and I think National Security Advisor Sang Ho-jin made a good point on the Korean media recently about the fact that Korea has a wide variety of options in terms of what we can do in response to what Russia does. So things looks like they are still open. Looks like, like what's settled is that North Korea is continuing to supply large amount of ammunition to Ukraine. That's fixed, but other things, it's not fixed. And depending on what Russia does, and what that means is the United States and South Korea will have to carefully read what Russia does to Pyongyang, what kind of help it sends to North Korea, and as we find out step by step what it does to Pyongyang, we will have to respond in kind. And I think National Security Advisor of South Korea has made a very good point that everything will be conditional, and I think that's proper way to go about it at this point.
Thank you so much, Professor Kim, for today's insights. We'll speak to you again next week.
Thank you very much.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.